Hello guys, welcome to another video in our Firma Motion playlist. In this particular video, we're just going to be checking out the transition property. So the transition property in Firma Motion is what gives you control over how your Firma motion components should animate from one state to another, right? So it allows you to define values like the duration, that's how long the particular animation should take, the delays, and also some other options like the easing functions of that particular animation, thereby creating smooth and polished transitions that basically enhance your user experience. Without wasting much time, let's jump into code. Okay, we got VS Code open up here. So for us to really understand how transition property works, currently we just have 4 boxes here, which are just started with our theme CSS utility classes. And each of the boxes just have the width of 300 pixels and height of 200 pixels, different background colors. So let's quickly have a preview of that in our browser and see how that looks. Let's refresh the page. Okay, cool. So we just have 3 boxes. And what we want to try to do now, we want to animate these boxes from this starting part to the particular ending of this particular row. So we're going to do it for each of the boxes, right? So first off, remember to do that, we need to convert this particular divs into motion component, which we already did here by importing motion, right? So what we could do here, we could set the initial of x to 0 and set x to 80 view width, right? So now let's see how that looks. So quickly, let's refresh the page again and see this takes it to this part of the page. Okay, cool. So now we already have the initial and the animate, and like you already know, in this video we'll be talking about a transition property. So now let's see it. In your motion component, you have access to the transition property, which you also define by creating an object, and in your property you have access to different values you could use to set how your animation should look like or how your animation should run. So for example, we could set the delay of this particular animation to 0.6 seconds. So basically this means before this animation starts, take 0.6 seconds before you start. So let's quickly preview that again in our browser and see how that particular value works. Now refresh the page, take some seconds before particular animation starts. So there's a delay happening before it starts. In the previous example we saw, if we take out this delay, okay, I think a better idea is just to take out this animation. Let's just copy our initial and animate to the second example, format properly. Okay, so let's see how this works. So we have 0.6, which is the first one. It has a delay of 0.6 before it starts. So you see this particular one doesn't have any delay. It's using the default delay, which comes with just a normal spring animation, which is 0.3 seconds by default on this particular motion component. So one of the value we could actually set in our transition property is the delay. Another value which you mostly make use of again is duration. So duration basically is how long this animation should take, right? How long should this animation take to run? So let's say this should be, let's make this 0.9 seconds. Quickly do that and let's see how this works. Okay, can we notice the difference? So we have added a duration of 0.9, so it takes extra seconds, approximately 1 point something seconds, right, before this animation completes. Now if you remember, this second motion component doesn't have any transition property. It's just making use of the default. Let's see this example again. It takes 0.9 seconds for this animation to complete, and it takes 0.6 seconds for the animation to delay. So let's take out our transition property into this particular component too. So for this, we'll say this should take a delay of 0.8 and a duration of 0.92. Now let's quickly see that. Let's refresh the page. Cool. So there's a slight delay. The first box starts moving before the second box, right? Because of how we have defined in our transition, or how we have defined our transition property for it to occur. So basically we're saying this box should wait some seconds before moving compared to the first box. So like this is just an example of what we could do. Okay, so for our third box, let's add difference property. So we're going to say a delay of 0.9 and let's see how that works. Let's refresh. Okay, cool. So the reason why this doesn't work, remember, is because we did not set the initial and the animate properties. So let's quickly set the initial and the animate property. So we're just going to start from the initial of x of 0, animate 80 width, that particular row. Cool. Let's refresh this again. And so we have 3 boxes moving simultaneously, right? They all are supposed to run for 0.9 seconds, which is the particular duration we set. So to have a better understanding, the first box here has the delay of 0.6, Next one starts at 0.6, 0.8. Next one starts at 0.9. And they are all supposed to run for 0.9 seconds. So let's see this one more time. Okay, on that property available in our transition property is the ease, right? So basically the ease is just how this particular component or this particular element should move from start and stop, right? So we could also set the ease, and interestingly we have some values already set up for us in Framer Motion. So as you can see here, we have the anticipate, we have the back in, we have the back out, we have the ease in, ease out, cycle in. Like these are different kind of ease options you could actually set for your item. So now let's see different examples. So for example, let's see anticipate, and then for our next box, we're gonna say this should have, okay, let's go to the second one. This should be the first one. This should have an ease of a linear ease, okay, which is just like on a straight line directly. Then for the last one, you'll say it should have a ease of ease in and ease out, or we could just say an ease of ease in, right? Now let's see how that looks in our animation. Okay, cool. So we have our 3 boxes, and we have, now you see these are all different boxes and they all have different animation. Okay, if you notice in the first animation, which is just a linear animation, it basically starts on a straight line, right? Okay, so if you notice for the anticipate, where we added the ease of anticipate, the particular box kind of anticipates animation in the sense of like it kind of expects the animation to happen, or it kind of draw back a little bit before the animation starts. Okay, let me show you again in our browser. Now if you notice, just notice, okay, I think to notice this properly we need to take out some, we'll just comment out some values. Let's comment this out. Let's comment the last one out. Okay, and we just have one box. Now if you could watch this box closely, it kind of anticipates before it starts the animation, right? So that's what the anticipates value for the ease, right, does. Let's see some other values. Remember we tried in linear, let's try in ease out, or let's try in ease in, so we could see this value directly in VS Code. Okay, starts as a very smooth animation and ends as a very smooth animation too. Okay, so we have different values over here. Okay, so before we go to the next transition property, let me quickly bring back our examples. I think we could just change this one to something like linear, previous example. Okay, cool. So what we want to do next, we want to check out another value which is available in our transition property, which is repeats, right? So for example, you want to repeat your animation for a particular time. You want this particular box to move from the starting here to the end for a particular time. Let's say for example you want it to happen for 3 times before the end of the animation, or you want it to happen for 4 times before the end of the animation. Okay, so for the first box, which is this, we have the value called repeat, right? And the repeat is, it just takes in the number, right? So for the first value, we're going to say we need this animation to repeat for 3 times. Then for the second value, we're going to say this particular animation should repeat for infinity, right? So infinity is also a number, which basically means forever. This animation is going to run forever. So lastly, we'll say we also want this one to repeat for 10 times, right? So let's quickly go back to our page and see what we currently have. Okay, cool. So we have this. Okay, cool. And okay, so this first one is supposed to run for 3 times. This one is supposed to run for 10 times, and the third one is supposed to run forever. Now you notice how it runs. It gets here, it goes back to the starting of this part, goes back, and this goes on forever and ever. Because why? We set the repeat to be infinity, right? Now we also have another value in our transition property, which is called the repeat type, where we just have some value, right? So first we have the loop, we have the mirror, and we have the reverse value. So for the first one, this should run on a loop. So the repeat type of loop, basically what it means is just the animation is going to run again, right? That is the default type. That's what we're currently seeing here, right, in our animation. This is just the default type. It's just going to keep on running. Then the second value which we have here, the mirror value, basically what it means is the animation is going to run forward and backward, then forward again, and it's just going to take our box from the beginning to the end. Now let's quickly see that example. That should be the first one. Okay, let's refresh and see this. Okay, so beginning And okay, cool. That is the mirror value, right? And if you say for the first one, we also want to add a repeat type of reverse. So what reverse does is basically it does the same thing, but it does the same thing as the mirror, right? But it reverses the animation, right? And I think a better way is just to show what the reverse does. Now this is it. The reverse should be on the first one. The second one should be our mirror, and I think this one is still the default, which is just a loop. Okay, cool. Now if you notice, this is the default one, which is just a loop. It gets to the end of the animation and it jumps back to the beginning. Like that might not be a kind of requirement for the kind of animation you're trying to achieve, but if you need an animation that is actually realistic, I think the best one to go for will be the reverse or the mirror value. So the mirror value and the reverse value are kind of almost similar, but it basically starts the animation and ends it slowly. That is the difference between the reverse and the mirror value. I think with this understanding, we say getting to understand how the transition property works and how we could actually use it in defining how our animation should run. There's a lot of properties to check out, which might be above the scope of this particular video. And so without wasting much time, we'd call it the end of this particular video and see you in the next one.